record on this computer. There we go. I think we're on. Great. So I will go first. So I'm Rebecca Majoya, and I kind of started this journey a little bit last summer by writing a little book because I was looking for a book to refer people to. And I couldn't find anything that was less than like 400 pages. And I thought, no, this is mean. That's just mean to junior homeschoolers. Yeah, here's this book that's 400 pages. And so, and then I just kept getting more and more questions and stuff because all these people, all of you have gotten thrown into this. Bless your hearts. And you've been doing it. So I started doing little Zooms with libraries and stuff. And it's so much fun. I just like doing it over and over again because I'm having so much fun. So I do end of school evaluations. I've been doing that for 28 years, feeling pretty old. I homeschooled my kids a little bit, but mostly they went to public and private schools. And then their dad did some homeschooling with them as well. And my philosophy on doing enough really boils down to, are your kids excited about learning? Like that is just so important to me, that your kids are enjoying learning. And I think that sometimes if we try to do, 2 hours a day, 6 hours a day, whatever, what ends up happening is sometimes kids lose the joy, and then you kind of just lose them somehow in the learning process. So that's my philosophy in a nutshell, and who I am and why I'm here. So why don't we jump to Amy?
Okay, I'm Amy Wright. I homeschooled my kids for 8 years, up through junior high, at which point Rebecca's kids' father, is that good? Began educating them at a private school for one of them for 1 year and one of them for 3 years. Two of our kids are best friends. And I now have been teaching middle school science for 18 years. I don't know. I've lost track. So I've been in the public school system. I've been in a private school system, and I've homeschooled I had 3 kids. All 3 of them actually were dyslexic. And it's possible all 3 of them were ADHD. None of them were tested, but it's a good possibility. And so that was a big part of what pushed me into homeschooling, is they had special learning needs that were not being met in the school. By the time I took my 4th grader home, he couldn't read. And so he ended up, and I unschooled, because what my kids learned in school is that they were, I don't know how to say, they did not do anything right in school. So they spent a long time just coming home and relaxing and learning to be kids again. And then they taught themselves all kinds of things that they wanted to learn. And now they're both programmers. So dyslexic programmers, you gotta love it. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's my story.
So what's your philosophy on being enough, though? Like, what is enough when you're homeschooling?
As a homeschooler, well, and right now I am teaching in person and remote at school, and I keep saying to the people that I work with, are the kids safe? Are they happy? Are they enjoying learning? Forget your standards. I mean, we have to teach to the standard, but forget all of that and have fun. Have fun teaching them. Have fun learning with them. So I'm not, but then again, you can get the next perspective with Megan, because Megan's mother liked hanging out with me because I'm an otter. I like to play. So that's what my children learned to do. Oh,
Cool. Megan, you're on.
All right, I am Megan Lavoie. I am currently homeschooling, have been since my kids were born. I have what would be 7th grade, 5th grade, and 3rd grade. They're 12, just turned 11, and 8. I grew up being homeschooled all the way through. And I am pretty organized and pretty planned. Probably could lean a little more towards Amy and Rebecca as far as letting them enjoy things more, because I'm more like, okay, you got to get this done. But at the same time, I do try to include things that they like to do, that they look forward to doing. But also like to get through the things that I have planned. My mom homeschooled us all the way through and kind of helped me get started. And I was telling Rebecca at one point, I was started at a pretty high standard because she was pretty organized and planned, and but we're in the midst of it now, and I plan on keeping them home, homeschooling them as long as we go for.
Cool. Now, can I tell Anya, Megan's mom was actually the homeschool. What was her actual title? Homeschool something for the state.
Oh, I looked it up recently because it was like the homeschool and independent school consultant. That was the word
That was
for the state of Vermont.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I was one of her readers.
Small world.
I read portfolios for the state of Vermont.
Oh, did you? I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I did that for 2 or 3 years. And at one point, I remember I was helping some people write the documentation that they needed at the beginning of the year to say what they were going to do. And Megan's mom would say, "You have to stop because you're too concise. You can't, I won't let you do this anymore." I was like, okay, what do you need? Let's get it down to the most basic language so that what you do fits what you have to send in.
Yeah, she always told me I wrote way too much. Way too much. Because I would write like a page and a half. When I first started doing the evaluations, she was the one in the office, and I would write a page and a half, 2 pages. And she's like, no, 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 no. I'm having you do this so I don't have to read that much. Like,
She'd look at me and go, "Yours are too concise. You need to put a little more."
that's fantastic. Oh, that's fantastic. Oh, so I have a couple questions in the chat. Do you guys mind jumping there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, no, I don't.
You don't mind. What do I do for proof at the end of the year? And I think they mean like if you're doing a portfolio.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, whether you're doing a portfolio or not, I read through material for 2 families now. Still doing evaluations until my license runs out. Then you can have them, Rebecca, if you want.
Thanks. I appreciate it. It's fun.
And saving some material from, I mean, if you pick in each subject, if you pick one best piece from the beginning and one best piece from the end for each topic, you're covered.
Oh, awesome. I usually say do something from the beginning, middle, and end, but that's even better actually. The beginning and the end, because what you want to see is progress. We're always looking for progress. And so, if you have a couple samples from what they were doing when they started the year and when they ended the year, you're good. Then you can see.
And no evaluator wants to look at 100 pieces of paper any more than the state does.
Exactly. It's so true. Oh, it's so true.
But variety is good. Variety is good.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the struggle? We'll jump to Megan again. What is the struggle you've had in relation to doing enough for your kids in schooling and homeschooling? Have you had anything you struggled with?
Yeah, this is where I'm not gonna fit in with
That's
Yeah.
okay. That's why I think it's nice to
Yeah.
have a variety.
because I do a lot. And when I took my stuff to my evaluator, she was like, wow. um, uh, as far as like the school work, I'm not sure if there's
Did your kids ever struggle in a subject like they weren't getting it and it was a struggle for you?
like I was telling you a little earlier, my son, it took him longer to read than it did with the girls. I have a girl, boy, girl. So he took a little longer to learn to read. And I was thinking, is this kid ever going to get it?
Mm.
Is this kid ever going to read? And I talked to my younger brother because I remember growing up when we were homeschooled and he struggled learning to read, but then took off and read like crazy. And I said, what did mom do with you to help you learn to read? And he was like, get him books he wants to read, get him books that he's interested in. So I looked for like easy books to read about trucks or about farms or like any of the kind of stuff that he was interested in, that he would want to read the book. And then rather than just your typical, okay, this is what you learn, you teach your children to read with these kind of reading books. Just find things that they're interested in. And that way he wanted to read. He wanted to be able to look at those books and read them.
Nice. Nice. I just think, yeah, whatever you could do a whole curriculum around motorcycles, around, whatever your kids are really into, you can do a whole curriculum. Amy, is there anything you struggled with specifically around like feeling like, am I enough? Am I doing enough?
I would say that because my kids were such unique individuals, I would say teaching them a work ethic may have been the biggest struggle. And part of that was because I'm not as organized as Megan or her mother to start with, so we did enjoy a lot of activities, but they seemed, because what they learned is how to be learners. I know it was different. Carson reads beautifully now, but that was a bit of a struggle for him. Calvin struggled doing math problems, but I mean, any different time at different times it was a different struggle. When he first came home, I would have him do 2 math problems and then run out and feed the chickens, and then do 2 more math problems and then run down to get the mail and then do 2 more math problems. I think math may have always been more of a struggle. Not only did I have them, they picked the things that they wanted to read. We would go to the library and bring home 50 books. That was our curriculum, but I also, my approach to reading was we read aloud a lot. Jeff read aloud every night almost. And during the day they read, and and my kids took amazing baths. They would get in the bathtub with a cup of cocoa and a couple of cookies and 3 or 4 books, and they'd be in there for an hour. And they loved it. That was like the reading was connected to cookies and cocoa and a bath. It was so you connected it as a positive thing.
Yeah. Or I was saying I would read to my kids when they were in the sandbox or playing with Legos or whatever, just read to them.
Yeah.
Doing something fun because they connect it to the good stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what Amy was saying as far as breaks, I definitely have one more so than the others that needs breaks between. Okay, get this done, go play your drums. Get this done, go do like breaking things up between.
Yeah.
But cannot sit there. My oldest sits there, goes through all her work, gets it done, and then will do what she wants to do. And she doesn't want to take a break. She wants to get it done first. But then my second needs breaks between things in order to be able to focus on what he has to do next.
So can I touch on the question that just came up in the chat?
Absolutely.
As someone who is an evaluator, and you can back me up on this or question me, Rebecca. If you have one list that you keep for the year and you stick a file and you stick those papers from the beginning of the year, you stick papers from the end, and then on the front of that, you finish a book, write three books you read aloud, 3 books that they read on their own. You're good,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah. I always ask kids to read aloud. Do you have kids read aloud to you, Amy,
Yeah.
when you're doing eval? Me too. That's
Our
the only
evaluator did.
test that
Yeah,
I do. Does your evaluator do that too, Megan?
Yeah.
yeah. They read aloud to me. I look for progress. I ask them to tell me about a picture that they've drawn.
Yep. I ask for like, did you go on any field trips? I mean, this year might be virtual field trips, but you could still go snowshoeing around Calvin Coolidge's house or something. There's still some cool things you can do. Or look for animal tracks. I know a lot of people are doing animal tracks in the snow and stuff like that for science. And I like to just have a conversation with the kids.
So that question about socialization, that for us, that was not a big deal because there were enough. I mean, our kids were hanging out with other kids all the time, other homeschoolers, but you can't do that during COVID anyway.
Right.
All kids are struggling with socialization. If you are spending time with your kids, they're learning to talk to adults. That is not a bad thing. They're learning to use real words instead of IRL and LOL and, all those other things.
Yeah, exactly. I think people way over worry about socialization because honestly, when you got a whole room full of second graders together and one adult, that's frightening. Okay. Or seventh graders. Think about a whole bunch of 13-year-olds and one adult. That's a frightening socialization situation.
That every morning at 7:30. No, but Megan's mother used to say, if kids were meant to be in big groups like that, we would have had litters instead of one at a time.
I could hear her saying that.
Yeah.
And as far as socialization, like homeschool children are probably better socialized than peer groups. Like they can talk with kids their age, they can talk with younger kids because they're with their siblings, they can talk with adults, not just the kids all their same age.
Exactly.
And as they get older and are involved in things, like my oldest daughter goes to dance class. Well, right now she's doing it virtually, and my youngest went to gymnastics. My son was doing jujitsu. Like they're involved in classes that they're interested in, and we'll see other kids there. And we're involved in a homeschooling group that they get together with other kids there, things like that. They'll meet other kids and
Yeah, even I mean, some people do the regular, like have a dance thing where they all go, homeschoolers go dance together. They all have snowshoe together or do those kind of things. But even if you're not doing the regular stuff, I mean, you like weekly, you're still getting together with other human beings. If people are really worried, I say, well, enroll them in Little League or something, something that they are with kids of their age, if you're worried about that. But if you go to if you worship at church or synagogue or something like that, they're going to be with groups of people.
Mhm.
If you're going to there's so many places you can go once there's no longer. Go ahead, Amy.
Go to the library, talk to the librarian.
Yeah.
Have them put together the grocery list and then talk to the cashier.
Yeah, absolutely. Have them volunteer. My older son was volunteering in the library. He was volunteering for various different things by like 12 or 13. And he was shelving books. So you think of that as a solo thing, but it's not, because you meet up with people in the stacks. And then he ended up, finding other kids he wanted to do a D&D group with at the library. So, there's all these ways that kids find each other.
So was there another question we missed?
Let's see. I'm just going to scroll through. Yeah, scroll through with me, so in case I missed something.
Oh, if you have not met with an evaluator yet, Generally, I don't know about you, but I just kind of look at them and go, are they, I mean, because you want to wait and see what's going on before you say this kid has learning issues that we need to check.
Yeah.
You want to get to know them a little bit. Are they learning things? I mean, do you see material that they have produced? Good.
Yeah. Yeah. And most evaluators, I think, can pick up quickly on if there's some huge learning issue. I mean, they're gonna note that. You know, if your kid is 5 and they're not speaking, we're gonna be worried. If we could see some big issues and we'll check in and ask you questions about it.
Yeah. If your curriculum changes mid-year, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Don't call the state. Oh God, no. Don't. They don't want to know.
One of the things that Megan's mom taught me is to make your curriculum as skills-based as possible. Don't make it topical, make it skills-based so that you're not saying, I'm going to study this. I am going to see how change affects history. You can study anything. I'm going to see how data is read. You can do any science. I'm going to see how math affects science. You can. I thought I turned that off. Sorry, folks.
It's all good.
Yeah, and the other way to word things, like Amy was saying, is like I live in Pennsylvania now, so it's basically the same kind of things, but just different acronyms, different wording for it. But we have to give objectives at the beginning of the year saying what we're going to do. And I write things like, will progress in math, will improve upon writing skills. So you're not saying by the end of the year, my kid will have like accomplished algebra and be totally skilled at it. Like will improve upon and whatever. So it's almost written a little vaguely so that at the end of the year, you could say, see, their handwriting looked like this at the beginning. It looks better now. It doesn't look much better, but it looks better. You can, like, not my child will complete all 180 pages of this book, like a little more vague almost.
And if you already did most of you who are here, you probably already did your MCOS, your minimum course of study. You've already sent that in and you're like, oh, darn, I said we'd finish all of Saxon's math or whatever. Don't worry about it.
Here's one thing to keep in mind. And this is something I said to Christina Hewitt, because we were looking at the change last year in what the state was requiring. They had something else, right? And I'm looking at it going, oh, I got to read all of this. And I thought, wait a minute, how many new people are going to be doing homeschooling this year during COVID that they now have to evaluate? They're going to be up to their eyeballs.
Oh, yeah.
In work. So you are not going to get the fine-toothed comb on this at the end of the year in any way, shape, or form.
And I've never found them really to be super fine-tooth comby anyway. Have you, Amy? I mean, they don't want to say, no, you can't homeschool like that. I don't even they see that as who they are or what they're about. They just want to make sure all the kids are getting an education.
Yeah.
And it looks different in every public school across this whole state too. In every classroom.
How many parents can handle homeschooling? So you're not going to get somebody who really doesn't care doing it because they're going to go, this is too hard, and they're going to send it back.
Right. There is that. There is that. Oh, let me scroll if we've skipped anything. I'm gonna go back up to the beginning just to make sure.
Oh, getting an evaluator. I don't.
Are you taking on more right now, Amy, or no? More people
Well, I mean, I probably am available, but when I get to summer, I'll I really don't like children.
You're so bad.
No, I'm just kidding.
I know
Um,
you are.
But and my license runs out in 2 years, and I am not renewing. I don't care how much they beg. I'm not. So that means I won't be able to do evaluations. But I would say the best thing to do actually is to ask at schools.
Yeah, and call the state. Does the state still have a list? Amy, do you know?
I don't know. I bet they do.
They used to have a list of people who did evaluations. I know a lot of you came from that that Facebook group, Homeschoolers Unite.
Mm.
And there's a lot of them. I know that I do it. And Rebecca Yam does it. This Colleen Christian, I think is her last name. But if you put it out there on that group, if you call the state, you ask your school, because any licensed teacher can do it.
Yeah, in fact, you can do your own, right?
Yes, I don't think you used to be able to do that if you were a parent, but now apparently you can. If you're a parent and a licensed teacher, you can do your own eval. Seems counterintuitive to me, but you can.
So I don't, doing an ADHD kid, you just do what you can, because whatever you do is going to be more than they're getting in school.
Mm.
My own bias as a teacher, I should not.
I was gonna say, and both Amy and I have taught in public and private schools and homeschooled. So like you're getting very well-rounded answers here. Okay.
You didn't have an ADHD kid, but I did. But your
Yeah.
kids had their own.
My kids were on the spectrum. My younger one is very much on the autism spectrum. So we had different issues going on. So we had to wrestle with the school. We had to, and the whole thing about them catching disabilities. Oh, good. The schools are, I pulled my hair out trying to get my kids evaluated and get them, because I knew they had stuff going on. So as a homeschooler, don't worry about it. You'll probably, as a parent, pick it up way faster than any teacher.
Well, and I wouldn't worry about being judged.
No.
Because heaven, there isn't any, you guys are all crazy. I'm telling you, I did it for 8 years. And anybody who cares enough about their children to stay home and educate them, nobody's going to be judging you, because you are giving your kids their best chance.
And as far as the distracted 11-year-old boy, I have one of them. That's the one that needs the breaks in between subjects.
Yeah.
Sit and do this for a while and then go do whatever. Come back, do your next thing. I found that helps, because he cannot sit and work through everything. And sometimes, today was one of those days that I'm like, okay, do the next problem. Okay, keep going. Like, have to kind of keep him on track. And he and his little sister sit across from each other and can really distract each other. So, yeah.
Different kids do it differently. I mean, it sounds like your kids are pretty good at seat work, Megan.
My oldest is.
Okay.
My younger two have to be prompted. Sometimes they are good.
Mhm.
Sometimes they are very distracted, and I have to encourage them to do what they need to be doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, the distracted, I would suggest breaks in between things, not making them sit and work for too long at a time, because then my son has not been diagnosed with anything, because I don't care. So I wouldn't go have him tested, but I'm sure he would have all sorts of labels if he was in the public school.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to look. It doesn't look like a worksheet. Like one of my older one had a really hard time reading, which it's so funny. He struggled with learning to getting going reading. At the end of 2nd grade, he was like late kindergarten level. He was just really struggling. And we did a lot of spelling words with wet spaghetti. It was really fun. We'd write in sand. We'd write in, we did all these. By the and there was a series he really loved because I'd read out loud to him all the time. And he, over the break between, like the summer between what would be like third and fourth-ish grade, he jumped to a sixth grade level.
Brian
Because, yeah, he
They get
loved
it.
Animorphs. He just fell in love with it. And I couldn't read it fast enough.
Right. And once
Right.
they get it, once it clicks, then they run with it.
Well,
Yeah.
well, this is one more story for me, not about my kids, but the Laven boy.
Oh yeah.
No,
If-
Niffin. The
Richie.
Richie, yes. Richie Niffin didn't like math. He didn't like math, so he didn't do math, period. He just didn't do math. And then he finally decided, well, I want to go to college. So in 1 year, tell me if I'm wrong, Megan. I got this
I
right.
don't have any idea.
Oh, in 1 year, he taught himself math up through 12th grade. And then he went to Poultney High School for his senior year. And he aced all his classes and became valedictorian and got free college. He was, the Poultney High School kids were a little annoyed with him, but he decided, now I want to learn this, so I'm going to apply myself.
Oh, and one of the Larson kids fell out with his mom. It was the oldest, Chris.
Yeah, right.
So 1 year, they were just not, getting along very well. He was not going to listen to her. So he read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica in a
And-
school year. That's what he did. He said, I'm going to read the encyclopedia. She said, great, go for it. And that's what he did. That was his curriculum for the year.
Vocabulary really comes in handy as a lawyer.
Yes. And now he's a lawyer. Yeah. Harvard lawyer. So I think it's helpful when these kids are like, ready. You think they're never going to go anywhere to know the success stories. The kids who like, we couldn't read and now mine's a computer programmer too. So
Photos are very good documentation. I always look at photos when I evaluate. Do you do that, Rebecca?
Oh, absolutely. Pictures are great. The picture of the volcano where the, whatever projects you did. And people will say, well, do I have to have my kid draw a picture of the experiment we did or write about it or whatever? No. A, you could take a picture. B, you could just write a note that you did that and tell me about it.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm not looking for, I don't not believe you. That's the thing. Like as a teacher, evaluator, mother, like I believe you. If you say we made a volcano and it spewed red stuff all over the kitchen, I don't have to see the stain on the ceiling to know you did it. Like,
Yeah.
fine.
I have one evaluation where the kid does all these songs. She sings me all these songs that like she can sing the periodic table. What do you know what that program is? I forget what the program is. And I am floored by the amount of information she knows. And I think she seems like she's enjoying it. At some point I may say, you need to just chill, Mom. But they're
Oh.
having a good time. Whatever works for your kid, your kid better than anybody in the school does.
Yeah, and somebody here says my daughter's a reluctant late reader, infusing the curriculum with lots of reading. No, that's not won't be a problem. That's fantastic. I mean, you can't overread to your kid or with your kid
Sorry.
or whatever. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's classical conversations. Yep.
Okay. If you didn't know them before, did you answer this one already, Amy? If you didn't already know them and you have a conversation as an evaluator, how will you know they progressed? Basically, it's looking at work from the beginning of the year and the end of the year. That's how you know they progressed. I mean, if you look at their handwriting, I could look at a sentence that a kid wrote in the fall and a sentence that they wrote in March, and I could see progress. I mean, kids just make progress. So, let's see. A digital. Oh, don't print things out. If you have a digital portfolio, I see, should I print things out or send a link to the portfolio to the state?
I would think a link to the portfolio would make the state very happy.
Yeah, because now you can do it all online. It's so cool, your portfolio. They have, so you can do it all online. Have you used that, Amy?
No, the two people that I evaluate both, they have paper copies because
Okay.
there's a lot of
Yeah.
art. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's a place you just like do each subject and you can just upload stuff right there. So you wouldn't have to print it out at all. That's fantastic.
Any other questions?
Just making sure we didn't miss any.
I'm going to get back to game night downstairs. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, there's an 11-year-old boy diagnosed with ADHD. He can sit at his table working on penmanship, but look over and he has his comfort blanket over his head or staring off into space. Maybe he needs to stare into space sometimes. You know, my little guy when he was on when he had my kid with autism, they used to call it Asperger's. They don't call it that anymore. Trampoline was like the best thing for Sam. I mean, he would just go out and just jump on the trampoline, boing, 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 boing. He was stimming, and I think a lot of kids do what they call stimming, basically just self-soothing. Whether it might not always look like sucking your thumb or rubbing a blankie, but it's the same kind of thing. They're just comforting themselves, and just staring in space can be a self-comfort and probably just needs a break. It sounds like Megan's son sounds like he needs a physical break.
So there was one more question, and it sounds like people are ready to go.
Okay, cool.
Samples and examples of portfolios. I don't know. Do you know, would the state have a sample of a portfolio?
They don't, but I know that they only want like 4 to 6 samples for each subject. So from what I do, when I go into somebody's home, I look at something at the beginning and something at the end. So I just advise people to do the same thing. Take a couple samples from early on, take a few more samples from later in the year, or, disperse it through the year, different topics, whatever. But really 4 to 6 samples per subject is so few things that.
And there are times that one thing works for 3 subjects because some kid is building something out in the woods and they did a drawing, a plan of it, and then they wrote stuff and did some measuring, and you've got 3 things right there.
Yep, exactly. Oh, somebody says they're feeling better. That makes me feel so happy. Because you got this. I mean, this is like, I haven't talked to one parent. I have fielded questions from probably 50 parents since last June. I haven't talked to anybody yet that I have said, don't do this. And I have said that over the past 28 years, twice. 2 different families. I said, don't do this, please. It wasn't.
No, I don't want to. I probably know them.
I won't say who, but it wasn't healthy either for the parent or for the kid. It just was not a healthy situation.
If you do an evaluation, you don't have to do a portfolio, although the portfolio helps the evaluator. You want to have material, but probably you would have more material if you were sending in a portfolio. Maybe not.
Is it okay for me to ask a question?
Yes.
So I'm a licensed teacher. I just left public education as a special educator. I had 20 years teaching. I have a middle schooler and a 2nd grader. So we can do the evaluation, but I don't know what it would look like. So I'm very old school. So I have all of the old assessments that I would have done with my students in school, and I can do that with my children. Is that what an evaluation looks like, or no?
No.
Amy, go, Amy.
So what you want to do is you want to ask them what they're, actually, you don't have to ask them anything. Okay. I would ask Rebecca to send you a sample evaluation.
Okay.
The name's blacked out or something. I mean, I take a paragraph that says citizenship and history. I think that's one of the topics. And then I, so-and-so studied blah, 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 blah. That's it. It's really very simple.
Okay. I think I'm making it much harder on myself just because of my my career.
You know too much.
I
That's
do.
your
I do. Thank you.
It's so true. We're so much harder on ourselves. And once you have the education stuff behind you, then you're even harder on yourself. Then, yeah, yeah. I literally have a conversation. I mean, if I say, show me what you want to show me, whether it's, if you have paperwork stuff or artsy stuff, or if they want to dance for me or play their violin or the piano, whatever they've been doing. I ask questions. I just have a nice conversation and then write up.
I might have a copy of one of your evaluations of one of my kids.
Oh, cool.
If you wanted me to find that.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
Because then I wouldn't have to, otherwise I would probably ask permission even if I take their name out, because I'd feel funny
Yeah, right.
sharing an evaluation. But it's a couple sentences. Like
Yeah,
I
and-
said, I got in trouble all the time for writing too much. So each subject, you get like 2 sentences per subject. It's like crazy how little you can write, you know?
Yeah. Well, and all of those formal evaluations, you don't, how much real information are you getting off of them? So we never did formal testing. We definitely, because my kids had some sort of a disability, avoided all testing of that sort, because then if you do any sort of that, well, that was, again, Natalie, Megan's mom, said, my kids were in public school. We were headed into the evaluation process, discussing how we were going to do it. And she said, don't do it, because then you have to answer to the state for certain requirements. So as soon as that happened, we pulled out. So
Somebody asked about Form B in there, and I don't remember if we answered, but that's the one right when a kid is first starting when they're 6. Is that right, Amy? The Form B?
yes,
That's
I don't
I
know.
think that's the one when they're 6.
Oh, wait, yes, that's the one where you ask them to stack blocks and can you put your
Yes.
line and
Stand on one foot and hop up and down. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Any teacher, any licensed teacher can do that. I think I have a semi special education stuff. I took got my master's in education. I did some of the special ed stuff and some of the curriculum stuff and all that. I think it helps, but it's not necessary. You could just, any licensed teacher can do it.
Well, and
for
I
you.
just kids with the special needs, but but
Yeah.
I did. Christina's kids were young when I did them, so I did a couple of those. Any other?
Well, oh, I see one of our other presenters just jumped on.
Oh.
Colleen, say hello, introduce yourself, because people need evaluators.
Hi. I was my kids and I started a new story and I got really sidetracked.
I jump out, Rebecca. Are you
Sure.
okay? Then I can go eat that pizza that I made.
Oh, go eat your pizza. Thank you, Amy.
No problem.
Yay. Yay. So Colleen, tell us how, give us a brief, how you're connected to homeschooling, and tell people you're an evaluator, because we have lots of people who need them.
Yeah, so I'm a licensed teacher. I hold 2 endorsements. My first endorsement was secondary social studies, so grade 7 through 12 social studies, and then I later entered the early childhood world, and I have my early childhood endorsement, so it's birth to grade 3. But I'm sure you talked about it, but evaluators, it doesn't matter. You could be a PE teacher and do end of year assessments. So it doesn't matter what the teacher is licensed in, as long as they're a Vermont licensed teacher and any endorsement, they can do end of year assessments. My teaching background is middle school and then also early childhood. And I have 2 kids. I have an 8-year-old and 11-year-old, and we have been homeschooling. I guess throughout. My older son, my 11-year-old, went to kindergarten in public school, and it just like didn't feel right to me. And so we pulled out and started homeschooling. And then last year, his fifth grade year, in November of his fifth grade year, so a few months after school started, he said, "Hey, I think I want to try full-time school," because we had done the hybrid, so my kids had gone for school specials. I knew that I wanted to stay connected with the school community because my family, we went into the homeschooling having a yearly decision. So I wanted there to be an easy transition with the kids. It wouldn't be a huge adjustment. They knew the school and the people and stuff. So that was important to me. And so they did that. And so my older son wanted to go back to school, and I took a deep breath. And because I had visions of homeschooling throughout, and that was actually a good wake up for me of really realizing what is our point of homeschooling. And for our family, it's to allow my children to be empowered to make those educational choices. And of course we help them with that, with talking through the decision, but that was really ended up being the goal for me. And so for him to feel empowered to come and comfortable to come to me and say, "Hey, I want to try this," that was really awesome. And so he went back, or he went to school, and then COVID happened. So of all years to go back to school, he picked COVID year to go back. And then with all the guidelines and everything this year, with wearing masks all day and stuff, we all agreed that we didn't want to be in school. So we're back to homeschooling. So it's this push and pull, a little bit of, I want to just relax. So we lean more towards the unschooling side of the spectrum, but because there is this, like, they might go back, or my older son has said, after this whole rigmarole ends, he wants to go back to school. So with that in the back of my head, there is this drive to, like, okay, is he on track? And so there is a little bit of that. So we do, we do use a math curriculum, and have a little bit more structured for other things. But the main thing is, like, we follow the interest-based things of, what books they want to read, and what science topics or social studies and things like that. I'm seeing a question. Can you explain unschooling? So for me, I call it a spectrum of like educational philosophy. So on one side of the line, you have people who like school at home. Here's the work that we're doing. Here's the curriculum that we're following. This is what we're doing. Sit down at the kitchen table. We're going to do our work. And it's very structured. And then on the complete other end is I've heard terms of wild schooling, where the kids, it's completely interest based. There's absolutely no parent, I don't want to say parent oversight, because there is like work involved.
I kind of see it as like parents aren't controlling the flow of where they're going in their exploration. Like that they more let kids explore the world, and if they're really into frogs, well, then let's go get books about frogs too. But really letting the kids, the wild child. That's kind of how I.
Yeah. And it's a lot of incorporating things into life. So
Yeah.
there's a few unschooling blogs and things like that. Ben Hewitt, he's a Vermonter. I'm blanking on the name of his book, but Ben Hewitt wrote a book. I'll have to look it up, but
Yeah.
he hasn't written he's written a handful of books, and there's one that's about
How do you spell the
unschooling.
last name? Then they can Google it.
Hewe.
Is it TT?
There's
Sorry.
2 T's.
Two
yeah.
T's. That's what I thought. 2 T's at the end. So if you Google it, then you can probably find it that way.
And he's a Vermonter. He I don't know if he still does, but he did live in Cabot, and so he has acres and acres of land. And his kids,
Cool.
like, there's a story in his book about they started butchering their own animals and growing their own food, and so their one son trapped some little critter and filleted it just like he had seen his parents process the bigger animals. And it was just like how kids are always learning because they're always watching. Yeah.
Megan, where would you put yourself on the I guess schooling at home to wild schooling? Like you're kind of in the middle. That's where I kind of see you. Megan.
Some of it I'm more structured, follow my plan that I work on all summer. But also one thing I've done, I was thinking about, is for science, I plan it ahead of time, but I've asked them what kind of things they're interested in. So we'll do unit studies. Like a couple of years I did. Now this year and last year we got a book that we follow that has activities and stuff in it. But in the past I have done, they'll come up with something they want to learn about. So 1 month we'll do a unit study on cows and learn all about them. 1 month we did a unit study on, trying to think, balloons. Like we learned all about how they were made, what different kinds, all. So I let them pick subjects, and then I researched and came up with lessons and activities to go along with that. But so kind of some of both. I tend to be a little more of the structured, follow the plan, but adding things like that in that they're interested in doing.
Cool. In the evaluations, I feel like over the years, that's where I've seen a lot of. Like people have a comfort zone, like they feel really comfortable, maybe science or history, just doing it more of a wild way. And then, but like reading or math, or you know what I mean? They have other things that they feel like they really need to stay in a structured way.
And if there's something I was thinking about, my older brother growing up, 1 year, he built a cabin up in the woods behind our house. And my mom made his whole curriculum based on this. He did math based on like measuring and building this thing. He did history, like people that used to build their cabins in the woods from the trees. Like he did, like they based, that was his year project, and they based all the subjects around this go in the woods, chop down the trees, make the boards, build the cabin project.
It's fantastic. I think they can learn, kids can learn so much from that, from something that they really want to do, like that's, and then take the whole year and just throw themselves into it. It's just such a cool experience. So somebody, yeah, so she put it in the chat. It's called Nourishing Homestead. That's kind of cool. So you can find it. Looks like it's on Amazon. Cool.
The Nourishing Homestead one is actually about their homesteading life.
Oh, okay.
It's that I've read both of them. That one's super awesome, and it makes you
Cool.
want to go buy a whole bunch of acres and have a little farm. But the one Homegrown Adventures is the one about unschooling.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, there's a lot of different, there's so many books out there about different types of homeschooling or experiences homeschooling that if you love to read about that kind of thing and that's helpful to you, you can definitely find them. I think is there anybody who has a question that we have not answered? go ahead and unmute and ask it if you have a question that we haven't touched on.
I just have a quick one. So when I go to write my evaluation and I look at my second grader, my fourth graders, Common Core requirements for the year of, do I just take the things and use those summary sentences like to make them sound like that's what we covered at what I'm doing? Or am I like, oh, I need a 3.1 R7, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Like I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around, like that requirement kind of thing. But that's why I'm sort of like, okay, if I get a evaluator, then maybe I don't even need to think about all that stuff. Maybe I'm just like, I can just say, okay, this is everything that we've done, and it's going to hit the second grade and fourth grade requirements, and they're going to show progress. And right now we're just so on the fence about if we're going back to school or not. So I'm sort of wanting to make sure that if we do, we're on track and we aren't, like so far, not that everybody's going to be all over the place anyways, but that we aren't so far like out of, what everybody else is going to be doing, or does it matter?
That's a Greg. Now, are you a teacher, Shelley?
No,
So
I
okay.
volunteered. Yeah. I
So you're-
volunteered at the school and did like 4 wins and stuff like that, but
Oh,
no,
cool.
not a teacher.
So you're looking at either hiring an evaluator or doing the portfolio?
Yeah, and just matching up what my kids are doing to that list of state Common Core requirements for each grade. Going,
You don't have to do the Common Core requirements. That's not even like the minimum course of study or whatever you sent in and said you're going to do.
Yeah.
When you send in your portfolio things, you would just pick. It's Colleen, jump in here. I think it's 4 to 6 items, isn't it, Colleen, that they want per subject?
Yeah, and on the homeschooling unschooling Facebook group, there is a like tagged post like in the
Yeah, I
announcement
saw
section.
some of those things. Yeah.
There's a list, and the AOE has a list of what's required too for the portfolio. So
I'm probably overthinking it.
totally, completely,
okay.
just completely ignore any state, like
Yeah.
those
Yep.
can be helpful guides, but really just like, poof, like put them out of your head, because what you're looking at is like, you said, what grade did you say?
Second and fourth.
Okay, so like second grade, math, for example, like you're probably looking at adding and subtracting and like perhaps multi-digit numbers. And so like literally that's what you would have examples of those things. So maybe your child started with 1 or 2 digit numbers, and you have examples of that from the beginning of the year, and then throughout the year they progress to multi-digit numbers, carrying, borrowing, those things. And so that is showing progress, and so you'll give examples from throughout the year for those things.
Child is horrible at writing down because he does it in his head and he absolutely refuses to write down his work. You're just like, okay,
So-
I know that you know it, but you got to write it down. We're dropouts of the virtual program because I couldn't make my kids write down their work. They were just like, why are we doing this if we know it? Why do I have to keep showing my work? And I'm like, because we have to. But if he gets his math done in his head, I don't know how to make him do it.
Well, you think in terms of, you really need 4 to 6 examples of
Right.
the written work. I mean, by the end of the year, hopefully, that you can do that sort of thing. But there are other things that are math too. I mean, you can do, the, oh my goodness,
Well,
more
we did
physical things.
You could
Right. Well, I was
like
gonna say, even today, like we did like a whole bunch of stuff with measuring cups and
Yeah.
made him write it all down because I was like, just write this down.
Or take pictures
Yeah.
of him doing it. He's
Yeah.
got the measuring cups out and he's doing his thing. Take a picture of it. And that
Yep.
can be something that you send to the state. It doesn't all have to be pictures of like handwritten work. It could be, you know, if you work with clay for fine arts, take a picture of it and that's your portfolio
Gotcha.
or whatever.
Definitely overthinking everything.
And
Oh,
there's
it-
lots of different examples for math too. Just, I mean, coming to mind, learning to read a clock. If you make a timeline of historical events, that a timeline counts as math. Pattern making. So if
Oh, yeah.
you do an art project that has to do with patterns, or you're skip counting, or you're baking and you're measuring, those are all math skills.
And for the kids, people who are so worried about being at this certain place when, you know, being caught up or being on schedule when they go next year. Think about this last year and a half, okay? When they get back next fall, it's going to be, kids are going to be everywhere.
Right.
And the reality is are anyway. I was a para in a classroom just a couple of years ago, and it was a class of 12 students in second grade, and they were everywhere from one kid hardly knew the letters, the sounds to make with letters. And there was a kid reading Harry Potter in the same classroom. You know, it's just, the teachers are so used to it anyway. But I think the expectation for all these kids to come back and be at this certain place is like, no.
Yeah,
It's
that feels good.
not
Yeah.
even there. It's not
Yeah.
even there. For the people I know that are teaching right now, that are in the classroom going in there. Oh my goodness, they're just all doing the best they can. You know, you got these second, fourth graders with masks on, and the masks are sliding down, and they got the plastic things, and they got to go. And my wife is a speech language pathologist, and she's doing it virtually. And it's 80% of what she's doing right now is counseling. She's got junior high and high school kids, and she's like, yes, we're supposed to be working on our tick, or we're supposed to be working on this or whatever, but these kids are like depressed and feeling isolated. And so sometimes she's just I think if we just get there, you know, get through your days, be smiling at the end of the day. If you're having a really hard time, put them in a bubble bath, for God's sakes. You know,
The main thing is like that relationship piece. So if you had to choose between them progressing in their studies or having a healthy relationship with you and other people, always choose the relationship.
And they're
Absolutely.
probably learning more at home in reality than they would be in school.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if they're, you know, having a bubble bath, give them some measuring cups. You know, like just,
Right.
you know, and I think of the, you know, relationships are so important and feeling good about who we are. You know, if your kid's struggling with reading, don't make them struggle all day. None of us want to struggle all day. You know, work on it, read out loud, you know, do what you need to do, practice those sounds for the letters or whatever, but try to make it as unpainful as possible, because it's because we're all struggling. You know, I'm so sick of my stationary bike. I could, you know, but it's too cold. It's 0 degrees. I don't want to go outside and go for a walk. You know, I would love to go for a walk with my neighbor, who I sometimes walk with, but now she's quarantined for 2 weeks because she's a teacher and she got exposed. So, you know, I mean, we're all just so struggling. I think that keeping our mental health strong and telling our kids that they're good at something every day, several times a day, you know, it's just so important. And I remember taking parenting classes. My kids were 4 and 6 years old, and I just wanted to learn some techniques or whatever, because my, you know, dad was a hitter, my mom was a yeller, and I didn't want to do those things. And what are you going to do? And I remember them saying, the teacher saying, list 3 things that you love about your kids that are absolutely wonderful. And I had to hesitate. It took me, and I cried all the way home from the class, because I thought, why can't I think of something quickly? And but it changed my life. because this having that person say, can you think of these positive things? Because if you can't think of them quickly, then obviously you're not telling your kid. You're not showing them that you think that they're wonderful and that they're bright and that they're good at, you know, making sandcastles or whatever it is, you know, just that they're wonderful, they have a wonderful smile, whatever it is, you know. And I think sometimes that gets lost. And I think when Megan, when you said, you know, the relationship is important, I think we really got to remember that um, feeling good about ourselves at the end of the day, it's important for all of us, especially these little bitty developing brains. So important. You know, Megan, do you have any last minute here, other things, words of wisdom or things you want to share?
I'd say that just keep doing your best. Even if you are doing your best, everybody's gonna have days that you're like, what on earth is going on? Why am I doing this? It would be so much easier to send them to school. But overall, it's much more beneficial to them at times. Like for my kids, I think of all the benefits that they're getting. We live in the city and they would be going to city schools with huge classes and I think of my oldest is very disciplined, she would just be bored. She'd get her work done and be bored. My second would be probably in special ed, labeled with all sorts of things. And the youngest would just kind of be watching everybody and wondering why the heck they're doing what they're doing, gravitate towards the ones that are messing around. And so they just like, I see the benefits of it, even though some days are really hard. But just keep going and try to look at the benefits.
And take care of yourself. I think sometimes we need a bubble bath too,
Yeah.
or to go for a walk. We gotta remember to keep ourselves, you know.
Especially now. I'm like, I haven't been physically out of my house in days. I think I need to get out. Because we don't go anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Colleen, what do you want to leave for people?
Don't be afraid to switch it up. I sometimes I go into things like, this is the plan, and then I run the plan into the ground, but this is the plan. And you have to be ready to throw the plan out the window. I mean, even when we'd joke like when I had a classroom, you know, the other teachers and I would like, the point of lesson plans is to have something to throw out the window, because some days you need to. And those are the days where, you know, you get outside, like for sure, or you do something that makes you laugh. That's different.
It's so funny. It makes me think of you know, I love to travel. We've gone to the beach. We took the kids to Hawaii once. We did, you know, these wild and crazy things. Do you know one thing that my kids remember more than anything is one day when they played outside and I read the Childcraft folk tales. I sat in a swing outside, just this like hammock swing, and read to them from that. And they just wanted me to keep going and keep going. I mean, I could hardly talk at the end of the day because it was like 6 hours. I was like reading straight through this book. They remember that like it was this huge, amazing thing. It was a book I got at a yard sale, you know, and it was a swing and we were just outside. And so it makes me think of that. You'll throw the plan out the window. Sometimes the simplest things they can learn and it can be amazing. And everybody can feel close and good about ourselves, and that's important.
And it's easy to get caught into this like, well, let's make everything a learning experience, and everything does not have to be a learning experience. So yes, certainly take secret pictures of kids, you know, so you might be able to use it in your portfolio, but don't like make sure that you're being present in the moment. So
Yeah.
it's you can do things just to do them.
Cool. I'm so glad that, to get you guys this feedback that I see there. It looks like people got a lot out of it. And that was the aim. So we'll do this again in a month or so, and just to, give people somewhere to chat, give you guys all some mental health by meeting up with other people who are doing this together. Thanks so much, y'all, for coming.
Thanks for organizing it.
Oh, you
Yeah,
bet.
thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Good. I'm so good. Oh, Colleen, what part of the state are you in?
Oh, so I'm in Heinsberg.
Okay.
And as far as end of year assessments, last year they started allowing, I don't see why they wouldn't continue it, the virtual. So
Yes.
I've met people through Zoom to do their end of year stuff too. And
Fabulous.
you're welcome to email me. I'll put my email on
Oh,
there.
good. Perfect. And I'm starting in March. When are you starting? Do you have a specific month you start in?
No, I'll start as soon as March.
me
I own my own business. I run outdoor. So if you're in my area and you're looking for outdoor programming, I run outdoor programs for kids.
Cool.
WonderRootsLLC.com. And this is my email. And so I do that, and so I plan things here and there, meetings with people.
Cool. And I will go, I'm in Proctor, which is near Rutland, and I will drive to the southern end of the state. And I have driven up to the Northeast Kingdom for people before, because sometimes it's hard for people to find somebody to do it. And I hate to have someone not feel like they can't homeschool just because they can't find an evaluator. But there's a lot of teachers who are, I think, this year coming out and realizing it's a thing. And we have so many people homeschooling. I think you'll be able to find somebody, especially if they let us Zoom, Colleen, like you said.
Yeah, that was it. I thought it was going to be challenging, and it worked out really well for people. Cool. I have this one family that has, like, they load up boxes and boxes of things. They just bring everything, and
Yep.
they didn't have to do that. So
Mhm.
and then as far as like what that would look like, I have other people who took some pictures, almost like they were doing a portfolio, and they
Nice.
sent those things to me beforehand. But then I had other people who were just like, all right, can you see this?
Yep.
and that actually surprisingly worked as well. So,
And I met people outside last summer.
That's what I did too. Yeah.
So
yeah.
whatever people are comfortable with, I think we can all pull together and make sure everybody has somebody to do their evaluation, and redirect you if you need somebody in your part of the state, and work together.
Yeah. And the AOE has a list too. So
good. They still do. Good.
Yeah, last year they usually every year they email me and ask me if I want to be on it. So
Awesome.
they do maintain a list.
Good. Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. Thank you, Megan. Thank you all for coming. And I did record it. So Colleen, you came on late. You're cool with being recorded?
Yeah.
Awesome. So this will be available for people to look at. When is the deadline to have it done? Is it August 1st these days? They keep changing it.
So if you want to work towards your minimum course of study exemption, so if you're planning to homeschool for multiple years, then get it in by August 1st. Otherwise, whenever.
Yeah.
And you can do it as soon as March 1st.
Yeah.
And you can do it as soon as March 1st, and that does not mean that you have to be done with your school year. I've had families who want to meet, they want to get it over with, get it done, and then they just keep going. So that's not just it's not a specific end date.
No, because you can definitely tell if they've made progress by then. It's not like,
Yeah.
So doesn't have to be the end date. Yay. Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Good night.